and welcome back to the Video Bulletin with your host Sebastian Soilis. Joining me is
Giselle Cornejo.
And we'll be giving you all the latest news from all of November and some December. Now for our first story, on November 13th at around 9:20 p.m. in Paris, 2 explosions went off. What followed was 7 coordinated attacks that led to 130 people dead and 368 injured. Here's some footage from that event.
Famed for its cafe culture, Parisians enjoying their Friday evening were sitting ducks for the terrorists. On a mild November night, this is how 3 hours of carnage began to unfold. These were the first victims of 6 simultaneous attacks. A masked gunman opened fire with an automatic weapon, shooting through windows at a cafe and restaurant in the same street.
I heard some noise when I was at the bistro, which is where I work. I got out, I started running. I was looking for where the sound was coming from. I figured out it was coming from Le Carillon and Le Petit Cambodge. I arrived at the scene and there were lots of dead bodies on the ground. Lots of dead bodies. Lots of dead bodies.
By now, the number of dead had already reached double figures. There were reports of other shootings. But if there was any doubt, Paris was under siege. The sound of a massive explosion unleashed to a global TV audience watching France play Germany left nobody in any doubt. A second blast threw the crowd into panic. And France's President François Hollande, who'd been at the game, to be driven away to a secure location.
The game carried on all the way to the 90 minutes. As far as we were aware, it was, I mean, even though we were getting news reports, we thought it was something trivial. We thought it was a hoax or something that had gone wrong. We didn't realise the full extent of it until we got outside.
Spectators flooded onto the open space of the pitch. Amidst the spectre of an increasingly terrifying night, seemingly the only safe place they were prepared to go. A look of fear was etched on some of the most famous faces of international football as players were led away, unsure of what was happening. There were reports of at least 1 suicide bomber at 2 fast food cafes close to the Stade de France. An attack designed to maim fans flocking to a packed game. One told how being on the phone may have saved his life.
I was crossing the road and there was an explosion. Everything went up in flames. I felt the reverberations. I fell down. Here's the phone that took the impact, and it saved me.
But then, as if things couldn't get any worse, it became apparent a major situation was unfolding at one of Paris's best-known music venues. Security units surrounded the Bataclan Theatre. Inside, the 1,500-seat hall was a sellout. Music lovers had come to watch the American band Eagles of Death Metal. This mobile phone footage was filmed just before the attack. The gunmen stormed the hall, shooting in the air, claiming their actions were revenge for France's intervention in Syria.
A day after the attacks in Paris, the hacker group Anonymous declares war on Islamic State. In the video, an anonymous member speaking French warned Islamic State members to, quote, expect us. Here is a video.
Vendredi 13 novembre 2015, notre pays, la France, fut attaqué à Paris vers 22 heures par de multiples attentats terroristes revendiqués par vous, l'État islamique. Ces attentats ne peuvent pas rester impunis. C'est pourquoi les Anonymous du monde entier vont vous traquer. Oui, vous les vermines qui tuent les pauvres innocents. Oui, nous allons vous traquer. Comme nous avons pu le faire depuis les attentats de Charlie Hebdo. Attendez-vous donc à une réaction massive d'Anonymous. Sachez que nous vous trouverons et que nous ne lâcherons rien. Nous allons lancer l'opération la plus importante jamais réalisée contre vous, attendez-vous à de très nombreuses cyberattaques. La guerre est déclenchée. Préparez-vous. Le peuple français est plus fort que tout, et se relèvera de cette atrocité, encore plus fort, sachez-le. Anonymous présente encore ses condoléances aux familles des victimes. Nous sommes Anonymous, nous sommes Légion, nous ne pardonnons pas, nous n'oublions pas, attendez-vous à nous.
Following the attacks in Paris, U.S. governors started speaking up about not letting Syrian refugees come to their state. Here is a report from CBSN on the subject.
More than half of the country's governors are refusing to accept refugees from Syria following the Paris attacks.
One of the attackers apparently may have entered France through Greece among the wave of refugees. It's sparking a debate here in the U.S. over whether we should consider security over compassion. Chief Legal Correspondent Jan Crawford is in Washington. Jan, can governors legally block refugees from entering their states?
Well, short answer is no. Federal law prohibits them from legally blocking the refugees, and the federal government generally under that law works, to kind of equally distribute the refugees. And they're looking to things like ties to the community, whether they have family in a specific state or culture there, or, where there may have better prospects. Under the law, that is coordinated, and that also directs the federal funds. So challenges to that in the past have not worked, and I think most legal experts on both sides of the aisle say that the states here can't just say, no, you can't come to our state.
So what are lawmakers saying? How do they want to make it more difficult to enter the country?
Well, that's a good question. So, look, they're not going to be setting up border checkpoints or demanding papers. I think what they would try to do instead is just say, we're not going to help with this. We're not going to help relocate these refugees. And, that could be anything from refusing to issue a driver's license to people who've been granted asylum, something like that. But, I think that what's important to think about here is that there are some states who are saying, well, we would take these refugees. And those are states where they would probably have been settled anyway, say like New York. There's not been a lot of Syrian refugees going to some of these states where the Republican governors are saying, no, we do not want these refugees here. One state I think that's interesting to look at is Illinois, which has settled Syrian refugees already, and now they're saying no. So you do see some states where they're saying no, but once the refugees are in, then they can move to these other states. But the question is, why would they want to move there if the states are saying, we don't want you?
On December 2nd, there was a shooting in San Bernardino. 14 people were killed, while 21 people were wounded. Authorities gunned down the couple responsible for the shooting a few hours after the incident happened. Here is what the president had to say on December 7th.
Good evening. On Wednesday, 14 Americans were killed as they came together to celebrate the holidays. They were taken from family and friends who loved them deeply. They were white and black, Latino and Asian, immigrants and American-born, moms and dads, daughters and sons. Each of them served their fellow citizens, and all of them were part of our American family. Tonight I want to talk with you about this tragedy, the broader threat of terrorism, and how we can keep our country safe. The FBI is still gathering the facts about what happened in San Bernardino, but here's what we know. The victims were brutally murdered and injured by one of their co-workers and his wife. So far, we have no evidence that the killers were directed by a terrorist organization overseas or that they were part of a broader conspiracy here at home. But it is clear that the two of them had gone down the dark path of radicalization, embracing a perverted interpretation of Islam that calls for war against America and the West. They had stockpiled assault weapons, ammunition, and pipe bombs. So this was an act of terrorism designed to kill innocent people. Our nation has been at war with terrorists since Al-Qaeda killed nearly 3,000 Americans on 9/11. In the process, we've hardened our defenses, from airports to financial centers to other critical infrastructure. Intelligence and law enforcement agencies have disrupted countless plots here and overseas and worked around the clock to keep us safe. Our military and counterterrorism professionals have relentlessly pursued terrorist networks overseas, disrupting safe havens in several different countries, killing Osama bin Laden, and decimating al-Qaeda's leadership. Over the last few years, however, the terrorist threat has evolved into a new phase. As we've become better at preventing complex, multifaceted attacks like 9/11, terrorists turn to less complicated acts of violence like the mass shootings that are all too common in our society. It is this type of attack that we saw at Fort Hood in 2009, in Chattanooga earlier this year, and now in San Bernardino. And as groups like ISIL grew stronger amidst the chaos of war in Iraq and then Syria, and as the internet erases the distance between countries, we see growing efforts by terrorists to poison the minds of people like the Boston Marathon bombers and the San Bernardino killers. For 7 years, I have confronted this evolving threat each and every morning in my intelligence briefing. And since the day I took this office, I have authorized U.S. forces to take out terrorists abroad precisely because I know how real the danger is. As Commander-in-Chief, I have no greater responsibility than the security of the American people. As a father to 2 young daughters who are the most precious part of my life, I know that we see ourselves with friends and co-workers at a holiday party like the one in San Bernardino. I know we see our kids in the faces of the young people killed in Paris. And I know that after so much war, many Americans are asking whether we are confronted by a cancer that has no immediate cure. Well, here's what I want you to know. The threat from terrorism is real, but we will overcome it. We will destroy ISIL and any other organization that tries to harm us. Our success won't depend on tough talk or abandoning our values or giving in to fear. That's what groups like ISIL are hoping for. Instead, we will prevail by being strong and smart, resilient and relentless, and by drawing upon every aspect of American power.
And now on to school news. One recent event that just happened was Club Food Day. Club Food Day it only happens once every semester. And it's a really good day because you can get all kinds of different food from In-N-Out, chicken bakes, the pizza was bomb. Anyway, even though it's a little expensive, it's still worth it. If Club Food Day comes around again next semester, be sure to get it. You do not want to miss out. Here's a recap of the event now. And this concludes us here today. Thank you for watching Video Bulletin. Be sure to be safe and enjoy a lot of food this Christmas break. And we're going to conclude with this video.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Everywhere you go. Take a look in the 5 and 10. Glistening once again. With candy canes and silver lanes aglow. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Talk